welcome everybody in our 101st year of service to the community and to the club. We'll start with our, oh, I want to introduce, I'm not sure if she was on the call or not on the call. Jessica Nissen is our new Spire Management tech support, but I'm not sure if she was introduced last week or not. I neglected to ask that question. So appreciate Jessica being our tech and supporting our speakers as we roll into the Rotary year. So welcome, Jessica, wherever you are.
I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. Very good. Thank you. So thanks a lot, Jessica. Looking forward to working with you. So let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Jessica has our flag to wave. And then if you want to mute everybody to Jessica, or you can mute yourselves.
Yeah. Hold on. Where's the flag?
Hi, Mary Louise.
Hello.
I recognize your eyeball.
Do you know?
Let's see. It's share computer sound, optimize screen share for video clip. Let's go share and see if we can bring you up the flag here. If not, we might have to.
Yeah, we can just wing it.
Having some technical.
Okay, well, does everybody have a flag that they can superimpose in their minds? And oh, John McCulley, thank you. We have a flag. So let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thanks for the improv there, everybody. Thank you. Let's see. First off, or next, we have our invocation and inspirational words. And Richard Pine, we had a quick substitution need, and Richard Pine pre-recorded
Today?
an invocation. So, Jessica, are you able to bring that up?
Well, the last video wasn't able to be shared, so let me send that real quick to. Can I send it to you, Sue?
Sure, you bet.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that right now.
Are you sending it through the chat or to email? To the chat?
Email.
To my email. Okay. Here we go.
Jessica, you might want to mute everyone except Sue.
Okay.
Okay.
Especially Tom Golden.
Hey, I see you right there.
It hasn't come through yet. So do I have an impromptu invocation, words of wisdom, words, spiritual words from the floor? Oh, wait, no. Wall Street Journal, that's not it.
Is Linda there?
I don't know. Well, I think what I would like to say is just real brief, since the email didn't come through, but I think it is so important now more than ever, the collaboration and the fellowship and the support that each and every Rotarian provides others, both inside the club and within our community, and everyone's creative ways to build community in these really challenging times. We need to be transparent, we need to be supportive, and open to supporting folks and working with our fellow Rotarians and our fellow community members to get through these trying times. And I just see all of you as true leaders in that realm. So with that, Oh, there's Richard Pine. What do you think, Jessica? Oh,
is also fatigue. Sometimes one of polio's symptoms is fatigue. Maybe it is fitting that one of our symptoms as polio eradication champions is also fatigue. Sometimes it is hard to hear that we are this close again. Please join me in prayer. Help us to be patient and persistent as Rotary pushes to eradicate polio. Especially in this time of COVID, help us to be able to visualize a world without polio, a world with less disease and more hope.
great. That was wonderful. We can all thank Richard for that. Next off is welcoming guests, and I know Marshall said that he had a guest. Let me know if others have guests with them today.
Yes, this is my wife, Leslie Roach. She's the principal of Robert Frost Elementary in Silverton.
Welcome. Nice to meet you. Do we have other guests? I'm not seeing any hands. Alrighty, I know we'll have a guest next week as well. So thank you, Marshall, for introducing. Visiting Rotarians. Do we have visiting Rotarians? Yes, Dan. There we go. I knew I'd seen you. Thank you for joining us again.
I'll save you from listening to me. Just go on ahead. I'm here.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other visiting Rotarians? Scanning? No. All right.
That's District Governor Norb.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Larry, who will be our speaker here momentarily. Larry, next off to you for bell ringers.
Okay, thank you, President Sue. For newer members, we raise money. One of the ways we raise money for our foundation is with bell ringers. Pay $20 and get to say whatever you like within the bounds of free speech. So we have only one bell ringer today, and that doesn't meet with the approval of the board and Tim Nissen, the SRF treasurer, the foundation treasurer. So please be thinking of a bell ringer, and I'll read one and then give one of my own, and then we'll open the floor with the permission of President Sue.
Absolutely, and I have one to do.
Oh, good, thank you. So first bell ringer is Linda Wooters. Linda, please stand. Linda Wooters is ringing the bell for the fortunate and continued good health of her family. Ring the bell. Oh, okay. Past District Governor Renee Campbell. Unmute.
Yep. I would like to ring the bell because I became a great-grandmother this week. My great-granddaughter, Monroe Avery, was born on Saturday. Little bit of a thing, 5 pounds, 7 ounces. So ring the bell for Monroe Avery.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you to Renee and Linda for the bell ringers. Any others?
Larry, Ozzy.
Yeah. Ozzy.
I'll ring the bell 4 times for my lunch money in the 4 meetings in August.
Hear, hear. Thank you, Ozzy. Anyone want to match Ozzy and a 4 time? Sue, that would be 4 bells.
I did 4 bells.
Did you?
Yes, I'll do one more for good measure.
I haven't gotten my hearing aids yet. They won't let me into the building. Okay, who else?
I have one.
Larry,
Okay, I can't see everybody.
Foley has one.
Okay, I'm going to call on John McCulley because I heard that from Sue. John.
Yeah, I want to ring the bell for my daughter. She was informed last week that she may have been exposed to someone who had COVID. So on Saturday, she had her test. She called it a brain scrape. And since the meeting started, I just got a text from her that her test turned out negative. So I want to ring the bell for my daughter, Megan.
Yes.
Right. Congratulations, John. Okay, who else do you see, Sue? Sue, do you want to do yours?
I have one, and if people want to put in the chat, I'm watching if they want to do a bell ringer. So I said this before we started, but I wanted to ring the bell for past President Tim for standing in for me last week while I attended and facilitated my own board meeting here at the club. So really appreciate it, Tim, very much. So ringing the bell.
Thank you, Renee.
So I have my hand raised. This is Warren Bedars.
Warren, you have the floor.
I want to ring the bell for Linda and I. We will be gone next Wednesday to Diamond Lake. On Tuesday, we head off. On the 6th of August will be our 37th anniversary, which makes us somewhere in the neighborhood of 41 years of being together. So I want to ring the bell for Warren and Linda Bedars for a long, very nice, beautiful couple that has been here for a long time. So ring the bell, please.
Congratulations, Warren. Thank you.
And Larry, Teresa Lule has a bell ringer.
Teresa.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I want to ring the bell for our first line, especially the fire department. They actually saved my office last Monday. I had a small fire, which they made it a small fire. They made it into a small one. It could have been much bigger and I would have lost my entire office. I had a light fixture that started on fire that wasn't caught immediately. There wasn't any sound, there wasn't any smell, nothing. My team member was right under it. And all of a sudden, she heard the plastic dripping on the floor, and that was the only way she caught it, and she was able to get out right away. They came in with a water can, which I didn't even know existed, and they were able to get the fire out. The only damage, well, other than smoke, which obviously is always the largest part of it, water and smoke, but they were able to really, the only equipment I lost were my two printers, my laser printer and my all-in-one printer. They saved my workstations right there. And so they did an absolutely fabulous job, got it out immediately. And my team member said, well, gosh, you know, they were here within 3 or 4 minutes. Of course, my comment was, well, I hope so, because they're only about 3 blocks from my office. And the fireman said, but Teresa, you don't understand. There are a lot of circumstances that can affect it. One of them was today was our training day out at the airport. He said, we literally just came back into the fire department when your call came in. Otherwise, if it would have been just a few minutes earlier, they would not have been there, which meant I probably would have lost my entire office because they would have had to come from miles, you know, several miles to get to me. And there, yeah, I would have lost it all. So thank you so much for the first responders. I love you. And Mike Niblock, thank you. I appreciate it.
Congratulations, Teresa. I'm just wondering, did you have fire insurance?
You know, funny, I keep getting that question. Yeah, I have very good insurance.
Statement of the obvious. I'm good at statements of the obvious. Okay, who else?
Ron Kellerman.
Ron.
Yes, I'd like to ring the bell for Kim Van Alstel and Barry and everybody who's had a role in making our amphitheater get to the point where it's at. I rode my bike by there a couple days ago, and it's so nice to see all that activity and that moved dirt and everything. This is just really great. It's the culmination of 3 or 4 years worth of work. In fact, I think the past president started brainstorming about a centennial project 5 years ago. So this is really exciting, and I'm glad it's coming to fruition. And so thanks for everybody who's made this reality, whether you were a donor or a committee member or a prime mover like Ken and Barry.
Thank you, Ron. President Sue, any other bell ringers that you can see?
Tammy just opted in, past President Tammy.
Tammy.
I was just letting Ron know that I'll join his bell ringer.
Thank you, Tammy.
Very good.
President Sue, do we have any others?
I don't see any more from the chat box.
And where are we on our time?
We
agenda?
are about 2 minutes over right now, but
okay.
But you can ask for one more round.
Well, I've got a bell ringer myself. In fact, I have two.
Okay.
One is, some of you know, but not all, because I haven't rung the bell about this, is that Sharon and I sneaked out of town in the middle of the night when COVID prevented any contact with anyone, and moved to Portland. And I don't recommend moving at the peak of COVID, which was April 14th, and peak of fear. We managed though, and we wanted to be here close by. So the second bell ringer is to announce the birth of our grandson, Lane Ashford Remmers. He will be 3 months tomorrow, and we have so enjoyed being with the little guy quite a bit. And so it's made the move all worth it. Meantime, I'm very happy for Zoom because I don't have to get on the freeway or on the bus to get to a meeting. I plan to keep my membership for a long time. So ring the bell twice, please, Sue, for Lane Ashford Remmers and Sharon and Larry being close by him. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, very much. So I didn't hear of any club announcements. So unless somebody pops something into the chat box real quickly, I'm going to move on. Okay, we're going to move on and then just take a peek back at the Tuesday e-blast that came out. We're starting to percolate some ideas around, since we're pretty much void of announcements and whatnot. I'd love to fill the void with some creative ways to get to know Rotary members better and do some little fun out of the box things. So looking forward to everybody's input. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Renee to introduce our program today. And I would ask everybody, as Renee's coming on board, to mute yourself so we can up the bandwidth for Norb, our presenter today. So, so Renee.
Thank you. Past District Governor Norb Murray is a member of the Rotary Club of Tualatin, and he is a retired owner of an event management company. He served 25 years in the Marine Corps, including a 5-year tour with HMS One, serving several presidents as a helicopter pilot, and we heard about that on May 6th. If you missed that program, I would encourage you to look up the recording and note that is available. Norb and his wife, Leah, she's also a Rotarian, and they have traveled to Uganda, Poland, Cambodia, and other places on Rotary projects. Besides serving us as District Governor, he has served as the District Vocational Chair, and he currently serves as our district's Polio Education Chair. Norb also serves as a Royal Rosarian, welcoming dignitaries and out-of-town visitors and promoting the Rose City. This is the first year for a long time, and he'll have to tell you how many years, that he wasn't able to decorate his convertible, load it up with candy, and escort the new district governor on their first official duty of riding in the Hillsborough Rotary Parade. That was something I really enjoyed. So I'm sure that District Governor Joe has missed that opportunity and is sad about that. But Norb will share today the basics of what the polio virus is and what it does, how it is spread, and how it can be stopped. He'll also include some background on how Rotary became involved in the eradication of polio and the current world health events that have had such a great effect on the eradication efforts. He'll also present some of those challenges, but also some opportunities that Rotary's infrastructure has been put to good use in the COVID situation. So please welcome again, Norb Murray.
Well, thank you, Renee. Thank you, everybody. Great to be here. I am bringing my screen up. Okay. So it was a very appropriate invocation given earlier about Rotary. One side note, though, Renee, I did actually get to decorate my car. It wasn't for the Hillsborough 4th of July parade, and my honoree was not the district incoming, or actually the district governor, new district governor. It was when our exchange student left for France. We put on a little mini parade and went by her host's house, and I decorated the car all up with all sorts of banners and everything else. And in the place, the honoree was Larry. And some of you may actually remember Larry was a giant teddy bear who went to all the meetings when I was governor, and he represented Rotary attendance. And he actually had a passport that each president signed when he visited that club, and he made all but one visit. And it's because I think it was the very first visit he didn't go. Anyway, but back in 2005, when I was going through my governor training, I was down in San Diego for the training, and incoming RI president, Carl Wilhelm Stenhammer, got in front of the audience of about 700 to 800 incoming governors and other Rotarian dignitaries. And he said he's traveled the world, and one thing he's learned is people were tired of polio. They were tired of the years that they had been putting into trying to eradicate, and we don't seem to be getting there. And he actually said at that time, said, we're going to wrap it up. Well, that was like 15 years ago. We're still at it. We haven't walked away from it because we made a promise, and we've shown that we are Rotarians, and we're going to do what we promised to do. So what is it? Polio, poliomyelitis, infantile paralysis, as some may remember it. It's a crippling and potentially deadly virus. Paralysis is actually extremely rare, and it is preventable by vaccine. And those who do get paralysis, treatment can help, but the condition can't be cured. If you get the virus in there, it stays with you for life. Just like chickenpox virus. You heard of shingles. Well, that's the chickenpox virus coming back. And it can affect those who were crippled. You can actually, through physical therapy, learn to walk again. You use other muscles that have not been affected. But later on, it can come back and hit you again. It's spread through contaminated food or water. Humans are the only host. And it can live up to 2 months in the environment. And what is it? It is a virus. It's a microscopic parasite that lacks the capacity to thrive and reproduce outside the human body, which is the host. And what it is, as I say, it says up here at the top, it is a single strand of RNA, and it's encased in what's called a capsid. It's a protein fat mixture that protects the RNA, that the RNA is hidden inside. And the difference is the COVID is very similar, but the capsid it's in is more fat-based. So actually it can be dissolved in water. So it's not, it doesn't have a very long life in the environment. Whereas the polio virus is more protein based, it's stronger, it can actually survive up to 2 months in the environment. So what does it do? The big cell you see is actually a nerve cell. The polio virus comes in, it'll cling on to the nerve cell and cause drill a hole in it, which that single strand of RNA escapes into the cell and reproduces. And then it forms new virus capsids like that and breaks out of the cell, killing that cell, moving on to another cell. So that's how it reproduces and moves on. And what happens is that in less than 1% of the time, the polio virus will break through and get into the nerve system, and it'll cause, and that's where the paralysis comes through. It'll get into the brain stem, you'll see right here, in the spinal cord, and if it gets up high enough, what's called it's numbered from C1 up to I think about C7 or so. If it gets up high, back in here, you can't breathe. It affects the ability to breathe. And that's where you see the kids in the iron lung. The lower it affects the spinal column or the spinal cord is the lower the paralysis. So a paraplegic might be affected somewhere down a little bit lower, a quadriplegic somewhere in between. So as I mentioned, it is for life. It primarily affects children. Most of them are children. It is preventable with vaccines. So how's it spread? It is through the feces of the passed on from a host who carries it, who will defecate into the environment, and it gets into the hands, it'd be picked up by flies, it gets into the dirt, it can get into the water, ends up into the food, or it goes directly to the new host, and the whole cycle is repeated. So that's basically how it's spread, whereas the coronavirus is spread airborne, it's through droplets, through sneezes, through this sort of thing, whereas this is more human-to-human contact. But it can be defeated. And it's done through what I like to look at 3 areas. One is immunizations, creating barriers, and through surveillance. So immunizations, you have 2 types. You have the droplets, which is called the oral polio vaccine. It's given, it's a live virus. It's given by 2 drops into a child, 5 and under usually is with the target age. And you have the inactivated polio virus right here, which is given by an inoculation or given by a shot. So what's the difference? Well, the oral polio vaccine is done by drops. It is a live but weakened virus, or attenuated as they call it, virus, and it goes into the gut. It's through given orally, gets into the gut. And the advantage of that is it can create what's called herd immunity, which you've probably heard through the COVID, all the publicity it's been getting. But typically 10% of the children do not, will miss being immunized in a campaign. So what happens is that a child builds the antibodies, they will pass that on through their own feces back into the environment. The children who are missed get infected by this weakened virus, and they build their own antibodies, their own immunities. That's called herd immunity. It's inexpensive, it's safe. It does need to be kept cold, so that's part of the expense. That's a huge part of the expense of vaccinating the children. A drawback is it can cause what's called circulating vaccine-derived polio virus, or that term you'll see there. And if you hear of a case in the Congo or in the Philippines or some place that is not an endemic country, it is going to usually be the case of the circulating derived polio virus. And that is a thing that they are addressing now. I'm not going to try to get into it because I could do a whole talk just on that type of virus. The inactivated, the IPV given by the shots, is, as I said, an injection. It's a killed virus, which gives immunity through the blood rather than the gut, so it can't be passed on. So you don't have the problem with the herd or the circulating virus. And in the more developed countries that have been polio-free for a long time, they give pretty much mostly the IPV vaccine. Extremely effective, very safe, very expensive, a lot more than the OPV. It does require trained health workers because it's a inoculation or an injection, and it requires sterile equipment and procedures. So that adds to the expense. Creating barriers. Going back to that same diagram of how it's passed from an infected child through hands, flies, dirt, and water, build some toilets. That's a barrier to passing that virus into being picked up by flies, getting into the dirt, getting into the water. Create clean water. That cuts it off from the water supply if water is infected. And then when you have that, if you have clean water, but also the simple things that we're doing now against COVID, wash your hands before and after you eat. And that prevents it from getting into a new host. And what's interesting is those barriers all sound like Rotary projects to me, global grants. Look at that environment there. You don't think that's not a nasty place, a wonderful spot for polio to hide in. But you build toilets, you take some of that away. That's actually a toilet that we did as part of a grant in Cambodia. And of course, washing your hands and face for cleanliness. And then follow up with surveillance. Rotary, combined with the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, have built 146 laboratories around the world, mostly in the countries such as Africa and Southeast Asia, and East Asia, Southern Asia, in that area, to test for polio. And it has had many other benefits. During the COVID crisis, the laboratories have been used for testing for COVID. It helped stop the Ebola outbreak in the Congo. There is a laboratory in Nigeria named after Larry Hewitt, who was a district governor in our district back in the early 90s. And he was very much a polio pioneer. Some of you may remember him back in the 90s as a polio advocate, and he was recognized as a polio pioneer. They have a laboratory named after him there. So how does it work? Okay, you hear a report of something happening, a child with having floppy legs. So you go in with a team, you collect a sample, you take that sample to the laboratory where they isolate the polio virus. 90% of the time, it's something else. But if it does prove to be polio virus, they will map out where it is in the village, what houses it's at. They will send in a team to go in and with a campaign and hit that village hard to stop it in its tracks. And then they will follow up in the environment, investigate the environment to see where it's at. So what's the history of all this? Well, you've probably heard the stories. It goes back thousands of years. Here's an Egyptian tablet that shows ancient Egyptian back in the early 14,000 BC, 1400 BC, with this weakened leg. He's got a crutch, definite signs of possible polio. It is felt that Emperor Claudius had it. He limped throughout his entire life. Sir Walter Scott was actually the first one to actually write about it. He supposedly had it back throughout his life, and they called it teething disease back then. It was had similar things that, such as what they called teething disease that children had. And of course, famously, Franklin Delano Roosevelt had it. But these are isolated cases. And there weren't the big outbreaks. So what was the big deal? Well, the reason was we had natural immunities, the herd immunity business. Everybody had immunity because conditions were so unsanitary. And as we learned to sanitize, to clean our water, to build toilets, this sort of thing, we lost that immunity. So it was in the early 1900s, the late 1800s, there started to be some outbreaks here and there. And it was in 1916, there were 27,000 cases in the US. That was a big deal back then. Over 6,000 deaths. And then in 1952, a big outbreak. And you had, you probably heard the story, just like it is today. Swimming pools were closed. The 2 football games in North Carolina were canceled. Warning signs, keep out of this house. Swimming pools closed. Schools closed till after Easter. Very similar to what's going on today. They didn't know exactly what was causing it, and they were isolating, trying to isolate the whole program. So what is the timeline that all this, where we are, how did we get here today? It was in the 1950s that Jonas Salk developed the inactive polio virus, the injectable one, objectionable by the look on this girl's face here, getting her shot. You had things like the polio pioneers. The kids all got their shot and were proud that they were polio pioneers. And then it was in the 1960s that the oral polio vaccine, Albert Sabin developed. You can see the line up here in LA, people lined up to get their oral polio vaccine, which was the miracle cure, which is what we're looking for today. I can remember getting my sugar cube with a pink vaccine in it when I was in school, all lined up to get those drop of sugar cubes. So it was actually after that started in the 1970s that they started doing the immunizations worldwide. So how did Rotary get into it? Well, Sir Clem Renouf, he was Rotary International President, 1978-79. He was on a plane flight and he was reading Reader's Digest, and he read about how they were ridding the world of smallpox at the time. Now, smallpox had some similarities to polio in that it only had one host, and that was the human. And back in the 1890s, there was a gentleman by a doctor by the name of Edward Jenner. It's actually 1796. He noticed that the milkmaids in England had clear complexion. Smallpox affected the face, that you broke out in it. It also caused many deaths. But he noticed that those who were around dairy cows had clear complexions, and he looked into it and discovered there was something called cowpox, which had a very similar, it was very similar to smallpox as a virus. And so a dosage of the milkpox virus created antibodies against smallpox. So in the 1970s, it took almost 200 years to get around to it. They decided to get rid of smallpox. And by 1979, they had rid the world of smallpox by this campaign. And he saw that and he thought, Sir Clem Renouf, he wanted Rotary to get on a bigger stage. He had created a program called the 3H program, Health, Hunger, and Humanity. And he was looking for something, and he called a friend of his who worked for the CDC in the US. Clem Renouf was Australian. And he said, is there something that Rotary could do that's similar? And he got the answer back, said, yes. How about polio? So they looked into it, and in 1982, they in the 1980s, or actually late 79, they did the first 3H grant, which is similar to our global grants today. And for $760,000 grant, they went into the Philippines and immunized 6 million children against polio using the OPV, the oral polio vaccine. And that was the first step. And that was also the year that smallpox was eradicated. That was also the same year that the last case of polio in the United States was reported. So it was in 1982, Rotary was looking for new directions or tasks. Cliff Docterman, many of you may know him. I think he may have spoken at your club sometime in the past, but a wonderful gentleman. I always think of him as sort of the historian of Rotary. He's still around, not as easy to get around, but he's probably one of the most wonderful speakers there is. And anyway, he was on a committee. They're looking into new directions or tasks for Rotary. And Cliff said we should be looking 20 or 30 years ahead. So it was in 1982 that the Board of Directors of Rotary adopted a resolution that was to immunize all the children of the world against polio by the 100th anniversary of Rotary International year 2005. And the name of this program would be Polio Plus. So they started this, they had the idea, and it wasn't until 1984 that Dr. Carlos Canseco, who was the RI president at the time, said, if we're not getting this done by 2005, we got to get started. So he asked Dr. Albert Sabin, the one and the same, Albert Sabin, a Rotarian in the Cincinnati Rotary Club, one who developed the oral polio vaccine, to come up with a plan. And he did. He said, if we could raise $120 million, we've got almost a million Rotarians, we could go out and we could immunize 100 million children for the next 5 years against polio. And they took it on and they decided, let's do it. Said, we need $120 million. So they went out and they started this campaign. And by 1987, they had actually raised $247 million. And this was a campaign that was started in 1980, and that's why you hear 1985 as this kind of the start of the polio eradication by Rotary. That's when they took it on as their major activity of all the members, the first major fundraising campaign by Rotarians for a single project. And as I said, at the Philadelphia Convention in 1987, they announced they had raised $247 million. So Rotary then went to the World Health Organization and said, hey, look, we'd like to eradicate polio. Now, the World Health Organization was skeptical. They said, well, these guys are just a service club. They'll get into for a couple of years and they'll move on to something else. I mean, you know, what do they got? Rotary came back and said, well, we've got 100 million volunteers. We've got muscle. We've got $247 million. Who said, well, come on in. And we did. And that was back in 1987. In 1988, they created the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, GPEI, based at Rotary's direction, based in Switzerland. It was a Rotary grant that set that whole thing up. And it consisted of the World Health Organization, who became the architect and strategist for the program, UNICEF, United Nations International Children's and Education Fund, the training. They provided the training, the social mobilization, which is very important in eradication, and the vaccine procurement. They had all the connections for procuring the vaccine. And then the Center for Disease Control, our US Center for Disease Control, which does the technical support to all the laboratories around the world. and of course Rotary. And what do? We are the bankrollers. We raised the money. We provided the advocacy to leadership to get our leaders on board. We provided voluntary muscle, the 100 million or the 1 million volunteers around the world to go out in the field and help with the immunizations, and of course moral support. In 2001, 2002, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation came on board, providing money, advocacy, and of course a big figurehead. And then just 2 years ago, the Global Vaccine Alliance, Gavi, became a member of the GPEI. And it was actually in 1986, January 1st, 1986, that Rotary announced to the world that we're going to do this. This is the Rose Parade in Pasadena float that they announced it with. You'll see at the back of the float, there's an abandoned wheelchair representing no more wheelchairs needed. The year 2005 is our goal. Around the pole were international exchange students in their country costumes. And in the middle here was a young man from Malawi who had been operated on by a Rotarian, Dr. Joe Serra, who straightened his legs. He was a crawler, and at age 15, he had his legs straightened by Dr. Serra and learned to walk and went on to become a successful, paid it back by being a school teacher. And he was riding that float that day. There is the GPEI team. So where are we today? 1985, we had 125 countries that were endemic with polio, 350,000 cases per year. Today, as of July 21st, a week ago, we had 85 cases of wild polio virus. 2 countries, Pakistan has the most with 56, Afghanistan has 29. Nigeria is still considered endemic, but they haven't seen a case in nearly 4 years, and they are on the cusp of being declared polio-free, which will make Africa all polio-free. Over 2.5 billion children have been immunized. They estimate $27 billion have been saved in healthcare costs since 1988, since we started this. 18 million children who would have been paralyzed or walking, well, many of them are adults now, are walking and giving back. Rotary has contributed more than $1.9 billion. Last year in our district alone, Rotarians contributed $128,906 from our district. That, as far as I know, is a record. It was the most for the last 5 years, which is all I have the records for. It about $15,000 more than last year, but we had a good year. 3,615 came from you guys in the Salem Rotary. I thank you for that. And it's going to be a tough road to hoe because a lot of clubs have lost their fundraising capabilities. Wilsonville, for one, that has had summer concerts, and they would pass the bucket at their concerts, and they would raise anywhere between $6,000 and $8,000 at these concerts, and they've lost that totally. So it's going to be a challenge. So what are our challenges? Funding, of course. Creating awareness, keeping it alive. It was mentioned the fatigue. Yes, we have fatigue, so we need to keep that up, keep the spirit up in advocacy. So what are the goals? Rotary's goal is $150 million. $50 million is to come from Rotary itself, and the Gates Foundation has deposited, they've renewed their pledge for 3 more years till 2023 to match what Rotary does 2 for 1. So our goal as Rotarians is $50 million. 35 million is to come from clubs. The average per club is $1,500. And of course, you know that there are some clubs that don't give any, some are only capable of giving very little. So the challenge is on the rest of us. DDF will be $10 million. Last year, our district gave $20,000 of DDF towards the program. And then the Rotary World Fund would match another $5 million. So probably, okay, how's it all spent? Well, 35% of all that money, it costs about $900 million per year to keep up the campaign. And that is, and this, where does it go? Okay, campaigns, 35, surveillance would be the next biggest one. Those laboratories I talked to you about, technical assistance, outbreak response, that's where the teams go in. There's an outbreak, so they go with a follow-up. And then other costs, social mobilization, vaccination, community-based programs, this sort of thing. That's where it goes. So the people, some people are paid. Promotion, you can see here, this is in Afghanistan, they're putting up banners. So promoting an immunization campaign, usually a 5-day program. Buying equipment, such as the coolers that are needed to keep it cold, or vehicles where needed. And of course, training, that is hugely important. That's where the social mobilization, training the women, the mothers, those who have previously had polio, to go out and sell the program to those who need it. And you talk about, okay, Polio Plus, what is it? Okay, as I mentioned, we do other things. 50% of polio time is used in other health issues, such as surveillance, outbreak responses, natural disasters. So they're used for other things. When COVID broke out, the polio health workers couldn't get out into the environment because of the quarantines. And so they were used for other purpose. They were trained to help assist with the COVID outbreak. So they were kept busy. Look at the other things that we do. Okay, polio vaccine, 450 million doses last year, but also vitamin A, measles, deworming tablets, yellow fever. Here's an interesting thing. Back when they were deciding on what they wanted to try to eradicate, way back in the 78, when Renouf said, what can we do? Yellow fever is actually considered, but yellow fever has another host, monkeys. It's carried by monkeys. So if you eradicate it in humans, it can still exist out there. COVID is the same way. They think animals can carry it. Vaccination for tetanus and so on. So that we do other things. So we are struggling. We've got, we haven't had the spike. They thought there might be a big spike when we had to kind of veer away from polio because of the COVID outbreak. But there's been no cases since 2014 outside endemic countries. No cases in Africa in 4 years. Only 2 countries with polio virus. 4 years we went with under 100 cases. Last year we were over. We'll probably be over this year. A little bit of a setback, but it's being confined to smaller areas. Only one type of polio virus remains. I won't get into that. There are 3 types. 2 have been eradicated. There is a new vaccine. I'm going to be doing my district newsletter article about the vaccines this next time, I think. Better strategies, possible peace with the Taliban in Afghanistan. I saw something about before they denied us to go in, now they're asking for help. G20 has reaffirmed commitment. At the Reaching the Last Mile Forum in Qatar about last fall, global leaders pledged $2.6 billion towards polio. And then as of July 20th this year, Pakistan has renewed their eradication efforts, and 800,000 children have been reached. So there is optimism. And if we do stop, look what we got. Measles. People don't immunize against measles, and look what happens. If we stop immunizing against polio, You don't want to see that again. Back to the iron lung. That's why we must win. That's why we must do it. That's our thing.
We are this close.
We are this close.
Tutelak Modest.
We are this close. This close to making history.
This close.
We're this close. We are this close.
We are this close.
This close. This close to changing the world.
We are this close to making sure no child suffers of crippling disease ever again.
We are this close to making history.
We are this close to ending polio.
This close to ending polio.
We're this close.
This close.
This close to ending polio.
This close.
We are this close to ending polio. All we need is you.
All we need is you.
All we need is you. It's you.
All we need is you.
This close.
If we don't act now, we may lose this chance forever. Help Rotary make history.
Thank you so much, past District Governor Norb. That was absolutely fascinating and informative. We truly appreciate your expertise and the history of the campaign. Would you be willing, we've run out of time, would you be willing for folks to reach out to you via email or whatnot to ask questions?
I would be delighted to. Yes,
okay.
I thank you so much. And
yeah, it was, okay, thank you so much. It was fascinating. Thanks for coming back and meeting with us.
This is Ozzy, Sue.
Uh-huh.
Could those slides that he showed, the history and the numbers, could they be emailed to all the club members?
What do you think, Norb?
Sure, I could do that. So,
okay.
Do you want the numbers?
Yeah, those showed the history of it and how many countries have got it down and all that stuff there toward the end was, I found really interesting and easy to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The program has been recorded as well, so we will have a link to the recording of the program.
Right. Right. All right. So, so Norb, if you could send that on to Renee and we can distribute that, and yes, you'll have a recording here. Jessica will be sending it to Pam Wasson to share out. So thank you so much. Let's give him one more round of applause. Thank you. So next week we will have Linda Bednarz will be the program chair, and the topic will be on building bridges in our community around racial diversity. Appreciate everybody's time. Good to see your faces, even though they're not three-dimensional in human form. Everyone have a great week, and we will see you next Wednesday. Thank you, everybody. Take care.